Welcome, everyone. Welcome, my thriving friends. I am so grateful that you could join us today in this very special interview, a very mindful interview, because my guest today has been changing the way we think about screen time, especially for our kiddos. And she's been doing this for over 30 years. So that's why she's the well-known digital expert. On top of that, she's an author. She's also the first ever founder of the first children film festival in the Americas. And she's the executive director of the nonprofit International Children's Media Center. Without further ado, help me welcome my friend, Nicole Dreiske. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's going to be such fun to dig into this because it's summer and parents need help with kids and screens. So let's get going.
Yes, and I will turn off the music right here. Awesome. Go ahead, Nicole. It's time for us to learn more about being screen smart. That is your specialty. We all know that now that being on the screen is a public health concern. Most of us have felt this ourselves and also have heard it from the former Surgeon General. What do you think makes social media and screen time a public health crisis?
Okay. So, the excessive use of digital media and technology poses truly some of the most significant population health risks facing us globally, because confronting those risks runs contrary to market interests and habituated behaviors. But the massive amount of time spent with screens negatively impacts the health of nearly every adult and child. In addition, the amount of time being spent using digital media is rising among US children and globally. And this got way worse during COVID. And so here are some of the top risks. Diminished vocabulary and reading. Don't know if you knew about this, but excessive media exposure harms language development in young children, and other studies. So they're usually using 2 or 3 correlating studies to get to the population health risk point. Other studies show that loss of vocabulary, loss of reading ability leads to the risk for lifelong poverty. That was a meta-study done by UNESCO with more than 100,000 kids. Then direct physical dangers, discomfort in the neck, in the back, the eyes. Everyone is getting myopic, but that can lead to serious injury in the long term. There are also indirect physical dangers, including obesity. We're not talking about that anymore. There's so many others, but children and adolescents who report 2 or more hours of media a day, and they're on the screens much more than that, have higher rates of sedentary behavior and decreased levels of physical activities. Then on top of that, you've got sleep disturbances, which lead secondary studies to chronic diseases. Then number 5, we already did 2. Number 4, aggression and poor regulation of behaviors and moods. Who's noticed that? It's the widespread violence, the aggression, and the desensitization of empathy in viewers of all ages. And this then dumps into what Vivek Murthy was talking about, poor mental health overall. And this whole idea of cell phone and internet addiction is continuing to grow. And those experiences elevate stress, greater depression, loneliness, insomnia, self-harm, suicidal thoughts. All of those studies together led the former Surgeon General to declare a screen-based mental health crisis. Happy now?
Yes, and especially now with the summer coming or here now, the more our kiddos are on screen, and that's a big concern for a lot of parents. I know I introduced you with your accolades, such great accolades and accomplishment over the years, but can you also briefly tell us what is your expertise or past experience that make you the well-known digital expert that you are?
Well, there are three building blocks, and they're not really related because I started by studying peak performance and interdisciplinary approaches to accelerate learning for adults and children. That was a full 16 years. Then I took on the issue of kids and screens because when VHS and DVDs became available, repeat viewing started to impact the ways children were creating identity. That was way back in the 80s and 90s. It influenced the ways kids were interacting in the classroom, and teachers were coming to me with these problems. So repeat viewing was devastating to early childhood development, and very few people outside of pediatricians noticed what was happening. And I want you to think about it this way, Katherine and audience. If a child watches anything 150 or more times, that repeat viewing becomes behavioral programming. It becomes part of identity building. Your brain can't help it. And
Wow.
that developmental boulder rolled into our culture without anybody paying a whole lot of attention. And then the next thing was social media. Okay, so first I did two things. I developed a workshop that presented facts and research to empower parents to start talking with children about their media experiences, because at the very beginning, that was the solution, and it still is. I also started the first juried competitive international film festival for children in the Americas. And so while providing positive, culturally diverse content, we were talking to children in a completely new way before every screening. Let me just riff a moment. We would say, you can't just come to the festival to watch a movie. You have to learn how to watch a movie. Now, were you born knowing how to read a book? Probably not. So what were some of the things we all needed to learn in order to read books? So you see, it was a playful, interactive, empowering way to talk to kids about what they were about to see. What we discovered was it made kids care about what they were watching. And then two pediatricians who saw this in action, because the pediatricians were a big supporter of my festival, said, you're changing brain chemistry around screen time. You're getting it out of, and they didn't say this part, I did the research to find out what does that mean. You're getting out of the lower reptilian brainstem, which is what's active during passive viewing, and you're into the cerebral cortex. So it was a wake-up call. If I could do that, anybody could do that. And also many more people needed to do that outside of a festival environment. So I started the International Children's Media Center and then spent the last 15 years putting the accelerated learning techniques together with the how to watch a movie with your mind awake techniques. And we've taught almost 750,000 kids these techniques.
Wow. And how do you exactly share that with the kids and have that much reach? That's impressive.
Well, partly the festivals, because 28,000 children just in my Chicago festival, 28,000 kids came every year. Then I did a huge one at BAM in New York and did festivals all over the world. But festivals were the one-off. You would talk to the kids for 3 minutes before the lights went down and then have a great discussion at the end. The most recent version of this has been deep dives with parent workshops and then in residencies at schools with children. So that's around 50,000 children. And the books that I did for the summer, those were to distill all of that work into really simple resources that parents can use.
Well, speaking of your books, you recently released two short books. Congratulations with that.
Thank you. Thank
And there's this empathy deficit terminology. Can you tell us what that is and how do your books actually help against that?
Okay. They're two different books. The first one, Movies Make You Smarter, fast tracks co-viewing for parents. Now, so let's rewind a little bit. Everybody, all the experts, the doctors, Fred Rogers Institute, Erickson
Mhm.
Institute, everybody tells parents to watch with their kids and talk to them. What does that look like? How do you start? What do you say? 21st century parenting, like all parenting, doesn't come with a manual. And parents kept telling me they didn't know how to start the dialogue, that their kids were already resistant to talking about screen time. So we developed and pulled out of Screen Smart a few basic strategies that connect to all the great things you parents are already doing with your kids and connect that to screen time. So it's, again, connecting everything you've already got going for you to screen time. So Movies Make You Smarter has tips to make healthy tech habits fun, communication boosters, so kids start to notice and communicate their thoughts and feelings. And then those simple steps that you asked about, Catherine, for using screen time to build empathy and critical thinking. And that is usually as simple as noticing what a character is feeling and comparing that with what you're feeling. But I'll get into that a little bit more. Then mindful viewing is completely different. I shouldn't say complete. It is different, though. It brings values and viewing into focus. So values. So these are strategies for faith-based screen use. And that includes special sensory tools that boost energy and focus so children stay more aware of their bodies while they're using screens. And easy ways to get the children talking with adults. That means you too, parents, about what they're watching. The last, and to me, the most important part of it is that it has new ways to build community and caring around screen time because you're doing it together.
Now, you have two books. How are they different? I think you touched on that a little bit with what you just said, but how are those two books different? And most importantly, what can they do for families, especially for parents and moms like myself?
Well, I think that the difference is they're both short activity books, and one is really
Yay.
focused on co-viewing. That's Movies Make You Smarter. It's about using short story-based videos to improve critical thinking and get your kids talking to you. Mindful viewing is that deep dive into what are my values and how are the values kids are seeing on screens conflicting with the values of my family or my church or my synagogue or my temple, whatever. That makes it possible to bridge this divide that we have now between what's happening at home, which is usually pretty good, and what's happening on screen, which is usually kind of dicey. And your kids can get anywhere at any time. So how do you get them talking is really the big. So let me share a couple of things. To
Sure.
If we want to engage with our children about screen time, we have to get to a very calm, safe inner space ourselves about this.
Mm.
The change starts with us, with the adults. And I'm sure you know from your own experiences that you can't, find a solution or even use a proven solution if you're already upset. So
Mhm.
first thing, stop blaming yourself. You have to create a no guilt zone around technology. Nobody saw the tech juggernaut coming. Even the people who set that juggernaut in motion, all those folks who were on screen in The Social Dilemma that's still on Netflix and Prime, and all those people who made, yes, millions and billions of dollars, were saying, yeah, we created these things. We didn't know they would cause these problems. We're so sorry. Okay, that's not helpful. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years,
Um,
creating the solutions to bridge around those problems. So another reason to create a no guilt zone: stress hormones. Cortisol blocks creativity. Cortisol blocks caring. Cortisol blocks curiosity. But if we stop blaming and judging ourselves, we can get into growth mindset around kids and screens. That's crucial, because if we don't believe that change is possible, for sure, it won't happen. Does everybody know what growth mindset is? I know it's been around forever in business.
Actually, if you can touch on with that, that'll be great.
Sure. Originally, Carolyn Dweck, was the darling of the business community. But the problem is with our entire society is that things go in and out of fashion. And sometimes people stop talking about things because, oh my gosh, that was in the 90s or in the aughts. It's ridiculous, because there are very powerful things like Einstein's theory that are still relevant. And so a growth mindset is the belief that one's abilities and intelligence and responses can be developed, that change is possible. That contrasts with a fixed mindset, which assumes that all abilities are static and unchangeable. So people with a growth mindset see the challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. That's down the road. You have to get to that, seeing those opportunities. But the first thing is believe in your neuroplasticity and take positive actions from there without judging yourselves. And remember, most importantly, you've already done a lot of the right things with your children. When it comes to technology and media, you're just going to build on things you've already started with your kids. And so some of those might be how we behave, how we treat other people. If your kids are very, very young, I think I said this in my TED Talk, you didn't just turn them loose on a playground and walk away. You gave them some guidelines, and some positive guidelines. And so how we behave and how we treat other people is really key, especially when you connect that training to our devices. You see, one misconception is that because we use so many devices individually, people think technology is somehow separate, somehow apart from family and life. We're all doing this. No, it's not. It's front and center, and it's developing. It's a moving target. So I have my family life, and technology is a part of it. We have to cohabit the tech space. So remember the first steps. Stop blaming yourself. Trust and believe in your ability to change, your neuroplasticity, and build on your strengths. And then we start a real dialogue with our kids about their digital experiences. Should I just keep going with this? Because I would love to give some of the hallmarks of a real dialogue to parents. But like I said, it starts with us. If we go in hot, and you know what that means. That means we go in feeling badly about something that they've done. We go in worried. We go, and our eyes are bigger and our heart rate is up, and they can tell that we're stressed.
Yes.
That'll never work. That's why they won't talk to us. You remember when I said how we talk to kids before every festival?
Yes.
Here's the good news. You see, as a parent, you have a million just before the screen goes on moments in a week. And so you can start to use them. But it's not just about talking. It's about inviting them to talk and then listening. So let me tell you what the two really big qualifications for doing this are. Who here has ever read a book aloud to a child? Who here has ever watched a TV show or a video? Good. We're all qualified. Done. And so it is not something that has to be done by me or a teacher or the biggest key is the first 3 keys I gave you. You've got to be in a good space. Next thing, you pick something that you're going to watch together. They may not know that. They don't have to know that. You don't have to tell them that at the beginning. You just sit down and start. You use your storybook voice, not the get to bed now or turn it off voice. Parents, you know what I mean. You're going to pick something short, you're going to watch it together, and you're going to cuddle. You're going to start, and I'm talking younger children here, about up to around 9 or 10. Stay close. Interact the same way you would if you were reading a book aloud. Now, I want you to remember your read aloud experiences. Do you motor mouth through a book for a child? No, no. You think about how you interact. The child asks a question, you point something out, you giggle, they and you make other connections. See that dog in the storybook? I saw a dog like that in the park. Then mom says, I had a dog like that when I was little. So when you watch the movie this way, in this co-viewing, don't be afraid to talk. It's
Mhm.
natural. Don't force it. And so what I'd like to do, Katherine, is
Mhm.
to just say, you can change your entire family's relationship to technology if you want to by taking it one day at a time, by first getting into that positive growth mindset. Hey, this is changeable. It's not static. Neuroplasticity says I can change this. That's cool. And then every positive step, every victory counts, no matter how small. Do we want to open to questions? Or should I keep going?
Yes, I was going to mention that if anyone has any questions, please post it in our chat and we'd love to answer them. So I have a follow-up question where you just said, I think I love your analogy that co-viewing with our kids when they're using their devices or screen is similar to how we read books to kids, because books and screen time, we usually hear parents going, read a book instead or go outside instead of being on your screen. But now, as you mentioned, screen and technology is just part of our lives. That's how it is. It's never going to change, it's never going to go away. So, how can we make it a connecting experience with our kiddos instead of a disconnecting experience?
Right.
And I love how you said it's co-viewing and how it looks like. So let's say my kiddos, and let's make this applicable for real life. Let's say I just picked up my son from summer camp. We're home, he's tired, and he wants to be on his screen to just veg out. What would be the step-by-step approach that would be helpful so that my son and I are co-viewing without me feeling ashamed of or guilty that I'm giving him a device
Okay.
or the screen time?
All right. So there are several little, they're not big ones, but little trip ups in that. If he's really tired, I mean, physically tired, that's a different, you have to know your child. So
Yes.
if your child will get crabby when he or she is tired, then you've got to go in really low. And when I say low, I mean low energy. You're not trying to bring your energy into the equation. Okay, first, let me answer your question, but first, let me say these two things. I'm not saying that co-viewing should substitute for reading aloud. Reading books
Oh, yeah.
aloud is amazing. It opens so many different parts of a child's brain, but you can do the same kind of thing with co-viewing and also build a new relationship around technology. So
Yeah.
I recommend both. Parents have gotten two very dodgy pieces of advice since television came out. Watch everything with them or turn it all off.
Mm.
Neither one of those can happen. And I'm not kidding. That's though. And so when I talk about co-viewing, I am not talking about every day, hours. Not at all. Co-viewing, like a read aloud, opened so many new parts of their brains and developed so much connection between you and the child that doing it twice a week for 15 minutes will get you moving in the right direction. You're
Twice a week in 15 minutes?
that's
That's amazing.
that's why it's so powerful and such an easy thing to do. That's why you really want, because I mean, do we not all have 15 minutes twice a week? Yes. If my child's relationship to the most powerful influence in his or her life hinges on my doing something twice a week for 15 minutes, I think I can manage it. I think I can figure it out. And so you, number one, if your timing is wrong, like right after camp, because I don't know, I'd have to be there and I can't be, I'd have to, because the physical cues that your child will give you, meltdown example, are one. Now with okay, so I've got a lot, done a lot of coaching with parents for again the 3 to 10 zone, and then 11 and up is a little bit different. So let me stay with the younger kids right now. It's
Yeah.
first, I can tell you're tired. Let's do something fun. It's a little different. If we're going to use a screen, would you like to use a screen? First, I'm asking you, would you like to? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to. Well, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to sit with you, and I want to share this. Is that okay? No, I want to watch by myself. Well, but I want to watch with you, and we've never done that this way. So let's do this fun. Just do it this once, and if we hate it, we won't do it again. Okay, so I do a lot of negotiating the first time, and I am anticipating difficulties that most of you won't have, okay? When mommy wants to sit down with you and give you time around something you already love doing, which is being on this thing, it's really fun. And so that is where it starts. And I think that there is let's do a freebie, Katherine. I have a very simple co-viewing guide, which walks you through the reminders, the how to use the storybook voice, how to get the dialogue started, and also most important, pick something that you know is non-toxic to watch. I have to be very careful here because I don't want to harsh the vibe around somebody's favorite kiddo show, but I think there are things that you have to you pick something, all right, and it's something that is familiar that you've heard them laughing at, and then you know that it's going to be about 7 minutes, and then you're going to start just the way I do. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at this together, and I really want to point out, and I don't tell that I'm going to point out things. I just say, let's see what happens when we watch together. And now that's very young. Let's see what happens when we watch together is for the 4, 5, 6. We're going to do something that's going to be so much fun. We're going to want to do it again. See, I prime it with something positive. Then I sit down, we're watching, and then I literally pause and I ask, what's that character doing? Mommy, that character is just running. Well, wait, but where is the character run? Wait, who is that character? Do you know who that character is? Mommy, you know who that character? Wait, I don't. I want to know who you think that character. Who's that character? Okay, so we get over all of those little things, and then we're using, Katherine, the language that you use to promote literacy constructs, character, setting. What's in that setting? I can say place for a 2-year-old. What's in that place? But setting, when you use a word like that, it connects right away to, oh, wait, I've heard that word in school, setting. And you are literally building literacy and reading constructs. You're laying the foundation by relating with them around the screen in a non-judgmental, and here's the key, I care about what you say and think way. You are conveying to the child for the first time that you care about their digital experiences, and that builds community around screens.
And that's such a deep connection for your child, our children, to be physically close with us and do something that they like to do as well, that both of you enjoy. I love that, and how you made it so simple that 2 times a week for 15 minutes each
Mhm.
time, that sounds doable. I appreciate you clarifying that, because I imagined co-viewing nonstop every time they're on their digital device, which is very
No.
hard, especially for a mompreneur like me, an entrepreneur, a mom with ADHD. Now, you were talking about younger kids. How about those that have teenagers who are already um, in this digital habit of always attached to their devices? How can we approach that?
That's a whole different dialogue. And it starts with a family meeting around tech, that we have a family agreement about how we use tech. And I'm going to give you the simplest possible example for 13 and up. When these things come into their lives, it's really important to have a dialogue around how we use these and reminding our children. And I loved it was part of a PBS show, but I never forgotten it. And it's long gone. But I loved when the mother said, "Sweetheart, you are not a rude person. Do not let the iPhone make you one. Do not let the iPhone change who you are and who we are in our family." And notice how I'm saying that. I'm not saying don't, because they will tune you out. That will just float away. You need to have a true heart to heart where they get to say, "But mom, you're on your phone all the time." And you say, there are some things that we can do together to change that. I'm willing to look at my part, but you need to learn your part. Okay?
Yes, I think that's so beautiful how we talk to our kiddos, especially when they're in that age group, teenage group, that has been basically grew up with the
Yes,
devices now.
yes, yes.
So, and I love how you have this real dialogue that you gave us an example. Can you also give us a real dialogue for ourselves in terms of stop blaming ourselves? Because I think since that's a huge first step, especially for parents who probably when they give their device they're already in a bad mood because they're already thinking, I'm giving the device, I'm giving in, I am such a bad parent, or I shouldn't be doing this. So that energy, I feel, would translate to your child. So how can parents change that dialogue for themselves so that it becomes a true connection with their
Right.
kiddos?
Right. You've got a dual negative paradigm in what you just said, because you're beating yourself up for doing it and then doing it anyway.
Yes,
That
exactly.
that's
That's what
that's not going to
parents
work.
are
That's not gonna work. Okay.
encountering.
So here is something that is really really helpful and effective, and I didn't say it, and it you build it with younger, you build it around co-viewing, but that what they have done on their screens becomes something that's part of family dialogue, that we talk about it. And so when I let a child watch something without me there, I say, "Remember when we were co-viewing and we did, I want you to pick the thing that made you laugh most, or I want you to pick the character that you liked the best, or the place that looks so cool you would want to go there," or you have a million things you can say. And then we're going to talk about that at dinner. Do you understand, Catherine? You're
Yes.
giving them a tiny, tiny, bite-sized Job. Never call it a job. Never call it a job.
Then they won't do it.
Before they start viewing. And then the part of the brain that is active and has to notice the thing that they're going to tell you, okay, will save them from being in the lower reptilian brainstem while they're watching. They're still alone, which we really want to get away from. And that is what Jonathan Haidt keeps talking about. It's the aloneness, the isolation that is so damaging. And just having family time and fun things as an aside, as a segregated aside, is not enough. We need to make a living, dynamic connection between screens and family activity. So that looks like two things. One, it's really simple. We do co-viewing where we watch together, not all the time, obviously, and we talk about it. We have a habit of talking about it. We bring it up. And you can start that dialogue. Oh my gosh, I remember the first time I saw, okay, so it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws. So, I love islands, but when I saw Jaws, nobody wanted to go into the water for like 6 weeks. It was crazy. Have you ever seen something that made you feel like that? And and that's 10, 11, then getting up into the hormonal zone. You go in a little bit differently, but opening that dialogue with the kind of voice that you're hearing from me. It's not exactly storybook, but it's non-judgmental, and it says, I care. I'm sharing something, and I care about your response. If you shut me down, I'm not going to respond to that, ladies and gentlemen, or I'm going to come up with another question. I'm going to, because there are many, many other questions to get that dollar. And then when they finally say, Mom, I don't want to talk about it, it's like, that's what's going to be different, because we're spending 1,600 hours a year with these things. We got to talk about it. I mean, I will make it funny. I had to do that when, okay, so that I co-raised my best friend and I, his child from the time he was born to the time he was 5 years old. So I had a lot of experience with the very young. And then my beloved nieces and nephews were sort of dumped on me when their parents would go out of town. And I'm going to tell you, they always had the choice between me and a babysitter. And the way I would play it, it's like, well, you don't have to follow Aunt Nicole's rules. But if you want Aunt Nicole there, we're going to follow the rules. And so that's the thing.
Mm.
We create it as a win-win, where they're always going to make the best choice. And so you don't have to do this. But if we don't do this, we're going to continue to have problems in the way that, and then everybody has problems. Everybody has, I had to turn your screen off, or I had to go to school to make sure that you weren't, I'm sorry, bullying other kids, right? So we're going to talk about this, and we're not going to talk about it the way you think we're going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it in ways that make you feel bad or that make me feel bad. We're going to talk about this in ways that help us understand what's really happening when we're using these things. Because I don't think we understand that. Does that make sense?
Wow. It does. It makes so much sense. And you have such practical and simple tips in there that I'm going to unpack and rewatch this interview afterwards to just really digest all of those dialogue that you had, as an example, all those co-viewing techniques. So important. I know we went over the time, but I felt that what you were talking about was so important that it needs to be heard. Now, how can we and our viewers support your nonprofit ICMC? How can we support it, and tell us how we can buy your books?
Oh, it's yay, it's simple. They're both on Amazon, and they're $2.99 each, but they're just activity books. Just activity. You can get through them in like 10, 15 minutes. I'm not kidding. I made them simple and easy to digest for parents. And thank you so much for that offer, Katherine, because for all the people who think there's no solution, we really just need to get the word out that there is one, and we are the solution because we have relationships with our children that we can build on, and we're going to pick those positive parts of those relationships to build in a positive relationship to technology. And it is entirely doable because we do it every day in schools with kids, every day. And check out our website, bring me in for a parent workshop, buy the books. And to sweeten the deal, Katherine, I promised this and I'm going to do it. I'm going to send you, and then you can make it prettier for your community. I'm going to send you our co-viewing guide, and it contains
Wow.
the tips and steps that we talked about, but in 1.5 pages. Okay?
Wow, thank you so much. That's very generous of you. And I will have the link to your books and your website in the description of this YouTube channel, this replay that will be available for others as well. So more people can really connect and understand what you were saying, that there is hope, that there is solution, and that parents could be the gatekeeper of those solutions and spread that word. Thank you so much, Nicole, for spending time with us, and I really appreciate you.
My great pleasure. Thank you so much for a wonderful dialogue. And everybody, happy co-viewing over the summer.
Yay! Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.